Don't talk to her. She's nothing, my daughter-in-law Giselle hissed at the receptionist, her voice slicing through the warm glow of Willow Haven's rustic lobby in Smoky Hills, Tennessee. My son Thane's cruel chuckle echoed, shattering my heart as I stood frozen, their betrayal burning like wildfire. They had no clue I, Seraphina Brooks, was the mastermind behind this sprawling countryside empire. What I unleashed next left them speechless, their world crumbling. I'm beyond grateful you're here. Stay with me to witness this reckoning unfold. Smash that subscribe button and drop a comment with your city and the time you're watching. I'm dying to know how far this story reaches. I'm Seraphina Brooks, 68 years young, a black woman who turned dust and dreams into Willow Haven, a chain of 12 countryside retreats across Tennessee's rolling hills. Nobody knows, not my son Thane, not his wife Giselle, not even my grandbabies, Zaria and Khalil, that I built this empire from nothing after my husband passed 20 years ago. I kept it secret, hoping they'd love me for my heart, not my bank account. As I sat in the back of Thane's SUV, the engine's hum vibrating through me, I felt a spark of hope. This trip to my Smoky Hills retreat was my shot to mend things, to bridge the gap with Thane and Giselle, who's been colder than a winter creek since they tied the knot 7 years back. The Smoky Mountains loomed ahead, their misty peaks glowing in the morning sun, whispering promises of family, laughter, maybe even a real connection. I glanced at Thane in the driver's seat, his jaw tight, eyes hidden behind sunglasses. At 42, he still had the broad shoulders of the boy who'd call me his superhero mama, hoisting me up like I was the world. Now he barely spared me a look. Giselle, up front, scrolled her phone, her manicured nails clicking like a typewriter. Her designer sundress screamed money, money I'd quietly slipped into their lives for years. Zaria and Khalil, 10 and 8, sat beside me, faces buried in tablets, earbuds sealing them off. I leaned toward Zaria, her curls bouncing as the SUV hit a bump. "Sweetie, you excited for the horses at Willow Haven?" I asked, my voice soft, hopeful. She didn't look up. "Yeah, whatever," she mumbled, thumb swiping her game. Khalil stayed lost in his cartoon, not even flinching. I swallowed the sting, telling myself kids these days were just screen-obsessed. I'd break through. I had to. "Thane, what if we did a family picnic by the lake?" I tried, leaning forward, hands clasped like I was praying for a miracle. "You used to love those, chasing fireflies till you crashed in my lap." Thane's grip tightened on the wheel, but his eyes stayed on the road. "Mom, we're pretty booked," he said, voice flat like he was reading off a cue card. "Giselle's got us set for horseback riding, a barbecue, maybe a spa day." Giselle snorted, not looking up. "A picnic? Really, Seraphina? That's so small time. We're here for the VIP treatment, not some backyard shindig." Her words cut deep, sharp as a razor. Small time. That's what she thought of me. Just an old lady with outdated ideas, tagging along like a lost puppy. I leaned back, staring out at the green hills blurring past. After my husband passed, I was a school teacher scraping by, but I learned the land, bought cheap plots, and built them into retreats that drew folks from Nashville to New York. My Memphis penthouse was worth more than most folks' dreams, but I never told Thane or Giselle. I wanted their love, not their greed. Maybe I'd been a fool for that. "Giselle, how about a campfire story night?" I said, my voice shakier than I liked. I could tell the kids some Smoky Hills legends like the ghost moonshiner who— "Lord, Seraphina, give it a rest," Giselle snapped, her eyes flicking up, cold as ice. "The kids don't need your dusty stories. They've got Netflix. Let's not bore them to death." She turned to Thane, her voice all sugar now. "Babe, you booked the private chef for dinner, right? I'm not touching some buffet slop." Thane nodded, quick as a whipped dog. "Yeah, it's done. Don't worry." His compliance twisted my gut. Where was the boy who'd stand up to anyone for his friends? The one who'd hug me tight and call me the strongest woman alive? Now he was Giselle's lapdog, and I was just there. I caught Zaria sneaking a glance at me, her brown eyes curious for a heartbeat before darting back to her screen. My heart jumped, then sank. Maybe she wanted to connect, but Giselle's shadow was too big. I reached into my purse, pulling out a faded photo of Thane as a kid, grinning with a missing tooth, holding a fish he'd caught. I traced the edges, my throat tight. This trip was my chance to bring that boy back, to show Zaria and Khalil their grandma was more than a shadow. The SUV slowed as we hit the final stretch to Smoky Hills. The Willow Haven sign appeared, carved wood with wildflowers painted along the edges. My design, every detail. Pride surged in my chest, warm and fierce. I'd poured my soul into this place, from the cedar cabins to the lakefront trails. It screamed home, even if my family didn't know it was mine. About time, Giselle sighed, slipping her phone into her purse. This better live up to the hype, Thane. I want the lakefront cabin, none of that budget crap. It's gonna be awesome, Thane said, his voice brighter, like he was trying to keep her happy. Right, Mom? I nodded, lips pressed tight. It's beautiful here, I said, eyes on the fields outside. You'll see. Khalil pulled out an earbud, looking up. Is there a pool, Grandma? He asked, his voice small but curious. I smiled, grabbing the opening. Better than a pool, sweetie. There's a lake for swimming and horses to ride. You'd love feeding the ducks. His eyes lit up, but Giselle cut in, sharp as a whip. Khalil, don't even think about it. You're not getting filthy in some lake. We're keeping it classy. Got it? The spark in Khalil's eyes faded, and he shoved his earbud back in. I bit my lip, the hope I'd been clutching slipping like sand. Giselle's words weren't just a jab, they were a wall, keeping my grandbabies from me. I looked at Thane, searching for a flicker of the man I raised, but he just kept driving, face blank. As we pulled into Willow Haven's gravel lot, the main lodge came into view, a warm, sprawling building with a wraparound porch and fairy lights twinkling against the dusk. My heart swelled, despite the ache. This was my creation, my legacy. I'd built it for moments like this, for family, for love. But as Giselle stepped out, adjusting her sunglasses like she owned the place, and Thane followed without a glance at me, a hollow pit grew in my gut. Zaria and Khalil trailed behind, tablets still glowing, shutting me out. I grabbed my suitcase, fingers tight around the handle. This trip was my shot to fix things, to show them I was more than the old woman they ignored. I took a deep breath, the scent of cedar and wildflowers filling my lungs. I wasn't giving up, not yet. As we walked toward the lodge, the setting sun painted the sky gold and pink, and I made a silent vow. I'd find a way to reach them, no matter how hard Giselle tried to shove me aside. I stepped into the main lodge of Willow Haven, my heart swelling at the sight of the cedar beams and the massive stone fireplace I'd designed myself. The air smelled of fresh pine and warm coffee, and the fairy lights twinkled like stars against the dusk, filtering through the tall windows. For a moment, I, Seraphina Brooks, felt like I was home, even if my family, Thane, Giselle, Zaria, and Khalil, didn't know this was my empire. I'd built it from a crumbling farmhouse into a Tennessee treasure, but to them, I was just a tag-along, an old woman they barely tolerated. As we approached the check-in desk, I clung to the hope that this trip could change things, that I could crack through Giselle's icy wall and remind Thane of the boy who once called me his hero. Giselle strutted ahead, her designer heels clicking on the polished wood floor, her blonde hair swinging like she was walking a runway. Thane trailed her, lugging their fancy suitcases, while Zaria and Khalil shuffled behind, noses buried in their tablets. I carried my small, beat-up suitcase, the one I'd had since Thane was a kid. The lobby buzzed with other guests, families laughing, couples snapping selfies by the fireplace. I caught the eye of Marlo, my front desk manager, her warm smile faltering as she recognized me. I gave a quick shake of my head, signaling her to keep my secret. I wasn't ready to spill the tea, not yet. "Welcome to Willow Haven," Marlo said, her voice smooth and professional. "How can I help you today?" "Reservation under Langston," Giselle snapped, not even looking at Marlowe as she adjusted her sunglasses. "We booked the lakefront cabin. Make it quick." Marlowe's fingers danced across the keyboard, her brow furrowing slightly. "Here's your reservation, Mrs. Langston. It's confirmed for the Meadowview cabin, but I'm afraid the lakefront is booked solid for your stay." Giselle's head whipped up, her eyes narrowing like a cat ready to pounce. "Excuse me? That's not what I was told. I specifically said lakefront when we booked. Do you even know who we are?" I shifted uncomfortably, my hands tightening around my suitcase handle. The lobby chatter quieted, heads turning toward us. Marlowe stayed cool, her training kicking in. "I apologize for the mix-up, ma'am. The Meadowview cabin is beautiful, with a private porch, and—" "I don't want your second-rate nonsense!" Giselle cut her off, her voice rising sharp enough to cut glass. "I want the lakefront cabin, and I want it now. Get it done, or I'll have your job." My stomach twisted. I stepped forward, my voice soft, trying to smooth things over. "Giselle, maybe the Meadowview's nice too. We could check it out." She spun on me, her face twisted with fury. "Don't you dare open your mouth, Seraphina," she hissed, loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. "Don't talk to her. She's nothing." She pointed at me like I was a stain on her perfect world. "She's just the help we dragged along. Ignore her." The words hit like a punch to the gut. My cheeks burned and my breath caught in my throat. The lobby went dead silent, every eye on me, some curious, some pitying. I stood frozen, my heart pounding so hard I thought it'd burst. In 68 years, I'd faced plenty, but never had anyone cut me down like this, in front of strangers, in a place I'd built with my own hands. Thane threw his head back and laughed, a deep, mocking chuckle that sliced deeper than Giselle's words. "Oh man, Giselle, you're savage," he said, wiping a fake tear from his eye. "But you're not wrong. Mom, just chill, okay? Let us handle this." My mouth went dry, my vision blurring as his betrayal sank in. This was my son, the boy I'd raised alone after his daddy passed, the one I'd worked nights for, scrimping to give him everything. And now he was laughing, like watching his wife tear me apart was the best show in town. I wanted to scream, to tell them this was my lodge, my legacy, but the shame glued my lips shut. I caught Marlowe's gaze, her eyes wide with sympathy, maybe even anger, but I shook my head again, barely noticeable. Not yet. I couldn't let them win like this. "Ma'am," Marlowe said softly, her voice steady despite the tension. "Perhaps you'd like to wait by the lounge while we sort this out?" Giselle let out a dramatic sigh, waving a hand like she was shooing a fly. "Yeah, take her somewhere she won't embarrass us," she said, her tone dripping with contempt. "She gets confused, you know. Old age and all." Thane laughed again, softer this time, but it still cut like a knife. "Come on, Mom. Just go sit down," he said, not even looking at me as he turned back to Giselle. "Babe, let's get this fixed." The whispers started then, low and buzzing, as guests pulled out phones, no doubt recording the mess. My face burned hotter, but I forced my chin up, my back straight. I'd built this place from nothing, employed dozens of folks, turned barren land into a haven. I wasn't some nobody, but right then, in that lobby with my son's laughter ringing in my ears, I felt smaller than I ever had. I turned toward the lounge, my suitcase dragging behind me like a weight. Each step felt heavier, the warmth of the lodge turning cold. Marlowe's eyes followed me, a silent apology in them. She knew who I was. Hell, she knew I could have Giselle tossed out faster than you can say checkout. But I didn't give the signal. Not because I was weak, but because I still clung to a fool's hope that I could fix this family without burning it down. As I reached the lounge, I sank into a leather armchair, the crackle of the fireplace nearby doing nothing to warm the chill in my bones. Giselle's voice still echoed from the desk, demanding, entitled, while Thane backed her up like a loyal puppy. I stared at my hands, calloused from years of work, and felt a fire flicker deep inside. Not rage, not yet, but a quiet, stubborn resolve. They thought I was nothing. I'd show them who I was, but I'd do it my way when the time was right. For now, I'd swallow the hurt, keep my secret, and wait. The morning sun spilled over the Smoky Hills, painting Willow Haven's meadows gold, but it did little to warm the chill in my bones after last night's humiliation. Giselle's words, "She's nothing," still burned in my ears, and Thane's laughter cut deeper than I wanted to admit. I, Seraphina Brooks, had built this retreat with my own hands, but to my family, I was just a nobody they dragged along. Sitting on the porch of our Meadowview cabin, I sipped coffee, staring at the lake glinting in the distance. I'd hoped this trip would stitch us back together, but after that scene in the lobby, I was starting to wonder if I was chasing a pipe dream. Still, I wasn't ready to throw in the towel, not yet. Inside, Giselle's voice carried through the open window, sharp as a tack. "Thane, tell me you booked the horseback ride for 10. I'm not waiting around with these tourists." She strutted onto the porch, her silk robe fluttering, phone glued to her hand. Thane followed, nodding like a bobblehead. "It's done, babe. You and me, private trail ride, then drinks at the bar." I set my mug down, forcing a smile. "Morning, y'all. You want some coffee? I brewed a fresh pot." Giselle didn't even glance my way. "Seraphina, we're heading out soon. You're watching Zaria and Khalil by the lake. Make sure they don't get dirty." Her tone was all business, like she was ordering a waitress, not talking to her mother-in-law. My jaw tightened, but I nodded. "Sure thing. Any plans for us all later? Maybe a family game night?" She snorted, scrolling her phone. "Game night? Please. We're meeting some folks we met last night for dinner. You just keep the kids out of trouble." She turned to Thane. "Babe, grab my sunglasses, the Gucci ones." Thane darted back inside without a word. I swallowed hard, the sting of being sidelined hitting like a slap. I'd raised him to stand tall, to respect family, but here he was, jumping at Giselle's every whim. I stood, brushing off my jeans. "I'll get the kids ready," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Inside, Zaria and Khalil were sprawled on the couch, tablets glowing, earbuds in. I tapped Zaria's shoulder. "Hey, sweetie, how about we head to the lake? You can feed the ducks." She shrugged, not looking up. "Whatever. Mom says we can't get wet." Khalil didn't even budge, lost in his game. My heart sank, but I kept my smile plastered on. "All right, let's grab some snacks and go." At the lake, the air was thick with the scent of wildflowers and fresh water. Families laughed nearby, kids splashing and chasing dragonflies. I handed Zaria a bag of breadcrumbs for the ducks. "Go on, toss some out, they love it." She sighed, tossing a few crumbs like it was a chore. Khalil stayed glued to his tablet, sitting on a bench. I knelt beside Zaria, pointing at a duck waddling close. "See that one? Looks like he's got a story to tell. Maybe he's the king of the lake." Zaria's lips twitched, almost a smile, but then she caught herself. "Mom says you make stuff up to sound cool," she mumbled, turning away. My breath caught like someone had punched me square in the chest. Giselle's poison was already seeping into my grandbabies, turning me into a joke. I forced a chuckle, hiding the hurt. "Your mom's got a wild imagination, huh? Come on, let's see if we can get that duck to chase us." I tossed a crumb, but Zaria just walked back to the bench, pulling out her tablet again. Khalil glanced up, curious, but didn't move. I sat beside them, the laughter of other families mocking my silence. This wasn't how I pictured our time together. No campfire stories, no giggles, just me playing babysitter while Giselle and Thane lived it up. By noon, the sun was blazing, and I slathered sunscreen on Khalil's arms, despite his squirming. "Grandma, stop, I'm fine," he whined, pulling away. "Gotta keep you safe, sweetie," I said, my voice soft. "Your mom'd have my hide if you got burned." Zaria looked up, her eyes sharp. "Mom says you're always messing things up. That's why we have to watch you." Her words were a knife, twisting deep. I froze, the sunscreen bottle trembling in my hand. Giselle wasn't just shutting me out. She was turning my own grandkids against me, painting me as some bumbling old fool. I took a deep breath, forcing the hurt down. Your mom's got her opinions, but I'm here for y'all, always will be. I ruffled Khalil's hair, hoping for a spark of connection, but he just ducked away back to his screen. My chest ached, but I kept my head high. I'd built Willow Haven from nothing, turned dirt into dreams. I wasn't about to let Giselle's shade break me. When Thane and Giselle returned, they were all smiles, smelling of lavender from their spa treatments. Giselle barely looked at me, barking orders instead. Seraphina, make sure the kids eat lunch at 1 sharp. Zaria's picky, so no junk food, and keep them out of the sun. They burn easily. I nodded, biting back the urge to snap. Got it. Anything else? She waved a hand, dismissing me. Just don't mess it up. We're off to the bar for cocktails. Thane didn't even glance my way, following her like a shadow. I watched them go, their laughter fading as they disappeared down the trail. My hands clenched, nails digging into my palms. I'd paid for their fancy car, their kids' private school, even Giselle's spa day, but to them, I was just the help. The afternoon dragged on, me trailing Zaria and Khalil around the lake, trying to spark a conversation. Y'all ever try fishing? I asked, pointing at the water. Your daddy used to love it. Caught a bass so big he swore it was a monster. Khalil looked up for a second, curious. Really? But Zaria elbowed him. Mom says Daddy doesn't care about your stories. He's too busy for that stuff. The words landed like a brick, heavy and cold. I forced a smile, but inside I was crumbling. Thane wasn't just ignoring me. He was letting Giselle rewrite our history, erasing the bond we'd once had. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the lake, I sat on a bench, watching Zaria and Khalil poke at the grass with sticks. Other families around us laughed, tossed frisbees, built memories. We were like strangers sharing a picnic table, not a family. My eyes stung, but I blinked it away. I'd spent years building this place for moments like this, but instead I was playing nanny, invisible to the people I loved most. I pulled out the old photo of Thane from my purse, his gap-toothed grin staring back. I'd given him everything, love, sacrifice, a future, and now he couldn't even look me in the eye. Giselle's voice echoed in my head, calling me nothing, and Thane's laugh backed her up. But something inside me stirred, a flicker of the fire that had built this empire. They could push me down, but I wasn't out. Not yet. I tucked the photo away, my resolve hardening. I'd find a way to make them see me, to remind them who I was, even if it meant swallowing this hurt for now. The Tennessee sun hung high over Willow Haven, its heat pressing down on me as I sat by the lake, watching Zaria and Khalil toss pebbles into the water. Their laughter, rare as it was, felt like a lifeline, a flicker of the family I'd dreamed of on this trip. I, Seraphina Brooks, had built this retreat from nothing, a testament to my grit after losing my husband 20 years ago. But to my grandbabies, I was just grandma, the old lady their mom, Giselle, had painted as a nobody. After her vicious outburst in the lobby, calling me nothing while Thane laughed, I'd swallowed my pride, hoping to salvage this vacation. But the ache in my chest grew heavier each day, like a stone I couldn't shake loose. I wasn't ready to give up, though. Not on Zaria, not on Khalil, not on the family I still believed we could be. I adjusted my straw hat, shielding my eyes from the glare. The lake sparkled, families splashing and giggling nearby, their joy a stark contrast to the silence between me and my grandkids. Zaria, 10, stood at the water's edge, her curls bouncing as she skipped a stone. Khalil, 8, sat cross-legged on the grass, poking at his tablet but stealing glances at the ducks gliding by. I seized the moment, kneeling beside Zaria. "Hey, sweetie, want to try for 5 skips? Your daddy used to get 6 when he was your age." She glanced at me, her brown eyes flickering with interest before narrowing. "Mom says you always talk about Daddy like he was perfect, but he's not like that anymore," she said, her voice flat like she was reciting a script. The words hit me like a ton of bricks, knocking the air from my lungs. I forced a smile, my hands trembling slightly as I picked up a smooth stone. "Well, your daddy was a kid once, full of dreams," I said, keeping my tone light. "He'd spend hours out here chasing frogs. Want to give it a try?" Zaria shrugged, tossing her stone. It sank after one skip. "Mom says you make up stories to seem important," she muttered, kicking at the dirt. "She says you used to clean barns for rich folks and you're embarrassed about it." My heart stopped, the world tilting under my feet. I gripped the stone in my hand, its edges biting into my palm. Giselle hadn't just humiliated me in front of strangers, she'd poisoned my grandbabies' minds, turning me into some pathetic caricature. I owned 12 resorts, a penthouse worth millions, but to Zaria, I was a barn cleaner, a liar clinging to fake glory. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "Sweetie, that's not true," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "I built places like this one. I'm a businesswoman, always have been." Zaria rolled her eyes. The gesture so like Giselle, it made my stomach churn. "Whatever, Grandma. Mom says you live in a tiny apartment and make stuff up to feel better." She turned back to the lake, dismissing me like I was yesterday's news. Khalil looked up from his tablet, his face curious but hesitant. "Is that true, Grandma? Did you clean barns?" His voice was soft, almost hopeful, like he wanted me to prove it wrong. But the fact that he even asked, that Giselle's lies had sunk so deep, felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I knelt beside him, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face. "No, baby. I've never cleaned a barn in my life. I built this place, Willow Haven, and others like it. Your grandma's got more stories than you can imagine, and they're all real." He blinked, processing, but Zaria cut in, her voice sharp. "Mom says you're delusional. She says you tell lies because you're ashamed of being poor." She crossed her arms, staring me down like a judge. The words were Giselle's, but hearing them from my granddaughter's mouth was a fresh kind of hell. I stood, my legs shaky, the weight of their disbelief crushing me. I turned away, pretending to adjust my hat, so they wouldn't see the tears stinging my eyes. I'd faced down bankers, contractors, and doubters to build my empire, but nothing had prepared me for this. My own flesh and blood seeing me as a fraud. I wanted to scream, to drag them to the lodge and show them the deeds with my name on them, but what good would that do? They were kids, parroting their mother's venom. The real fight was with Giselle, and maybe Thane, who'd let this poison spread. I took a deep breath, the scent of lake water and wildflowers grounding me. "Let's head to the picnic area," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. "Y'all must be hungry." At the picnic tables, I unpacked the snacks I'd brought. Apples, granola bars, nothing fancy, per Giselle's orders. Khalil nibbled on a bar, but Zaria pushed hers away. "Mom says we can't eat that stuff. It's not healthy enough," she said, her tone dripping with superiority. I bit my lip, the urge to snap rising like a tide. I'd paid for their organic, overpriced groceries, their private school lunches, but here I was, getting schooled by a 10-year-old. "All right, I'll grab something else later," I said, keeping my cool. I sat across from them, watching other families at nearby tables, their chatter and laughter a painful reminder of what we weren't. I tried again, desperate for a connection. "Khalil, have you ever heard about the time your daddy built a treehouse? Took him all summer, but he was so proud." Khalil's eyes flicked up, a spark of interest. "Really? Did he—" But Zaria cut him off. "Mom says Daddy doesn't care about your old stories. He's got better things to do." Her words were a slap, sharp and final. Khalil looked down, the spark gone, and I felt my heart splinter. I leaned back, my hands clenched in my lap. Giselle wasn't just sidelining me. She was erasing me, rewriting my life into something small and pathetic. I'd given Thane everything, love, sacrifice, a future, and now he let his wife turn me into a punchline. My eyes drifted to the lodge in the distance, its cedar walls glowing under the afternoon sun. That was my legacy, my truth. but to my family, it was just another fancy place they thought they deserved. As the kids returned to their tablets, I pulled out Thane's old photo from my purse, his gap-toothed grin mocking me. I'd come here to build memories, but all I was getting was rejection. The hurt burned, but beneath it, a fire flickered. Quiet, stubborn, unyielding. Giselle could spin her lies and Thane could stand by her, but I wasn't done. I'd built this place from nothing, and I'd find a way to make them see me, even if it meant biding my time. I tucked the photo away, my resolve hardening like steel. The afternoon sun blazed over Willow Haven's outdoor market, its stalls bursting with handmade soaps, fresh peaches, and woven baskets that smelled of sweetgrass. I, Seraphina Brooks, wandered through the crowd, my heart heavy as I tried to shake off Zaria's words from earlier, her cold, parroted claim that I was a barn cleaner, a liar spinning tales to hide my shame. My grandbaby's voices echoed Giselle's poison, and Thane's silence stung worse than ever. I'd built this retreat, this whole damn empire, but to my family, I was a ghost in their perfect vacation. I'd sent Zaria and Khalil to the kids' club, a program I'd designed myself, hoping a break would clear my head. But as I passed a stall piled high with apples, a familiar voice stopped me cold, slicing through the market's cheerful hum like a razor. "Seraphina's getting old, you know," Giselle's voice drawled, sharp and smug from behind a curtained stall. "She won't be around forever, thank God." My stomach dropped, and I froze, my hand gripping a basket I'd been eyeing. I edged closer, hiding behind a stack of quilts, my pulse hammering in my ears. A woman I didn't know laughed, her voice high and grating. "Giselle, you're awful. What's the deal with her anyway?" I peeked through a gap in the quilts. Giselle leaned against a table, her blonde hair gleaming, a glass of wine in her hand. Thane stood beside her, sipping a beer, his face relaxed, like they were just shooting the breeze. A couple I didn't recognize sat across from them, all cozy in the shade of the stall's awning. Giselle smirked, swirling her wine. "She's a burden, plain and simple. We only brought her to watch the kids so we could actually enjoy this trip." My breath caught, a sharp pain stabbing my chest. I pressed myself against the quilts, praying they wouldn't see me. Thane took a swig of his beer, nodding. "Yeah, Mom's always been needy," he said, his voice low, casual. "She's got nothing going for her, lives in a rundown apartment, scraping by on Social Security. I've been footing her bills for years." The lie hit me like a freight train. My hands shook, the basket slipping from my fingers and landing softly on the ground. I lived in a Memphis penthouse worth $4 million, paid for by the empire I'd built from nothing. I'd covered Thane's car payments, his kids' school tuition, even Giselle's designer handbags, and here he was painting me as a charity case to strangers. The other man, a guy with a polo shirt and a smug grin, leaned forward. "So what's her deal? Does she have any money of her own?" Giselle laughed, a cruel tinkling sound that made my skin crawl. "Money? Seraphina? Please. She's a financial drain. We can't wait to be rid of her. Once she gets too old to handle, it's straight to a cheap nursing home. I'm not turning my house into a retirement home for some useless old woman." My knees buckled, and I grabbed the quilt stack to keep from falling. They weren't just mocking me. They were planning to toss me aside like trash. I wanted to storm out, to scream that I'd built this market, this retreat, every inch of Willow Haven. But my feet were glued to the ground, my heart pounding so hard I thought it'd burst. Thane chuckled, shaking his head. "The funny thing is, she still thinks she's somebody, keeps telling the kids these crazy stories about owning resorts. Resorts! Can you believe it? It's pathetic, like she's got early dementia or something." The couple laughed, their voices blending into a cruel chorus. "Delusional," the woman said, sipping her drink. "Must be tough dealing with that." "Tough?" Giselle scoffed, her eyes glinting. "It's exhausting. She's so desperate for attention, always trying to act like she matters. That's why we let her tag along. She's free childcare. She thinks we invited her 'cause we care, clueless." My vision blurred, tears burning my eyes as I pressed a hand to my mouth to stifle a sob. This wasn't just a jab, it was a betrayal, raw and vicious. Thane, my boy, the one I'd raised through sleepless nights and endless hustle, was laughing at me, tearing down everything I was. I'd paid for their lives, their luxuries, their damn wine, and they saw me as a pitiful joke. The man leaned back, grinning. "You're stuck with her till she kicks the bucket, huh?" "Not if I can help it," Giselle said, her voice cold as steel. 5 years, 10 tops, and we're free. No more pretending we give a damn." She clinked her glass against Thane's, and he grinned, like they'd just sealed a deal. I stumbled back, my chest heaving, the market's chatter fading into a dull roar. I'd faced plenty in my 68 years. Grief, struggle, doubters, but nothing like this. My own son plotting my end like it was a vacation he couldn't wait to take. Giselle's lies had turned him against me, but his words, his laughter, were his own. I leaned against a tree, its rough bark grounding me as I fought to breathe. The photo of Thane as a kid, tucked in my purse, felt like a lie now, a memory of a boy who didn't exist anymore. I wanted to run, to disappear into the hills and never look back. But something deeper stirred, a fire, hot and unyielding, born from years of building Willow Haven from nothing. They thought I was a nobody, a burden to be discarded. They had no idea who they were dealing with. My hands clenched, nails digging into my palms. I'd let them play their game, let them think they had me beat. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As I straightened, wiping the tears from my cheeks, I vowed to hold my truth close, waiting for the moment to lay it all bare. The evening air in Smoky Hills carried the scent of cedar and smoke from the lodge's fireplace, but inside me, a fire of my own burned hotter than ever. Giselle's venomous words from the market, "useless old woman," straight to a nursing home. And Thane's cruel laughter had shattered something deep, but they'd also lit a fuse. I, Seraphina Brooks, wasn't the nobody they thought. I'd built Willow Haven and 12 other resorts from nothing, and I'd bankrolled their cushy lives. Cars, school tuition, Giselle's designer obsession, no more. Tonight, I'd turn the tables. As I stood outside their Meadowview cabin, my purse heavy with the documents I'd asked Marlowe to prepare, my heart pounded, not with fear, but with a cold, steady resolve. They'd pushed me too far, and it was time to call their bluff. I'd spent the afternoon pulling myself together, wiping away tears and replacing them with steel. I'd called Marlowe, my front desk manager, and told her to gather the proof. The deed to Willow Haven with my name in bold and a ledger of every dime I'd funneled to Thane and Giselle over the years. Now, as the sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky in streaks of fire, I knocked on their cabin door, my knuckles firm. The kids were at the lodge's movie night, giving me the stage I needed. This was my moment. Giselle yanked the door open, her silk robe slipping off one shoulder, her face twisted in annoyance. "Seraphina, what now? We're getting ready for dinner." Thane lounged on the couch behind her, scrolling through his phone, barely glancing up. I stepped inside, shutting the door with a soft click that felt louder than a gunshot. "We need to talk," I said, my voice calm but sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. I stood tall, my eyes locked on Giselle's, then Thane's. For the first time, I saw a flicker of unease in her face. "Talk about what?" Giselle snapped, crossing her arms. "If it's about the kids, just handle it. That's why you're here." I pulled the documents from my purse, the papers crinkling in my hands. "No, Giselle, I'm done being your errand girl. I heard you at the market today, talking about how I'm a burden, how you'll dump me in a nursing home the second I'm too old to babysit." Her eyes widened, just for a split second, before narrowing again. "You were eavesdropping? That's low, even for you." She turned to Thane, her voice dripping with fake outrage. "Babe, can you believe this?" Thane sat up, his brow furrowing, but he didn't meet my eyes. "Mom, come on, don't make a scene. You know how Giselle gets when she's stressed." I laughed. a sharp, bitter sound that made them both flinch. Stressed? Stress doesn't give you the right to call me useless, to lie to my grandbabies, to laugh while you plan to toss me aside like trash. I slapped the documents onto the coffee table, the thud echoing in the quiet room. Take a look, Thane. That's the deed to Willow Haven. My name's on it. I own this place, every cabin, every trail, every damn blade of grass. And not just here. 12 resorts across Tennessee, all mine. Giselle's jaw dropped, her face paling under her flawless makeup. You're lying, she hissed, but her voice wavered like she was trying to convince herself. She grabbed the deed, her eyes scanning it, her hands trembling. This is fake. You're just a sad old woman making things up. I didn't blink. Keep going, I said, nodding at the ledger. That's every penny I've paid for your lives. Your car, Thane. The kids' private school. Those Gucci bags you love, Giselle. All on me. While you called me a financial drain. Thane snatched the ledger, his eyes darting over the numbers. Thousands for their mortgage, tens of thousands for tuition, countless more for Giselle's shopping sprees. His face went gray, his hands shaking as he looked up at me. Mom, you've been paying for all this? Every cent, I said, my voice steady as stone. And you stood there, laughing, telling strangers I'm some broke nobody living off your scraps. You let her poison my grandbabies against me, Thane. My own son. Giselle spun toward him, her voice shrill. She's lying, Thane. She doesn't own anything. She's just... A knock at the door cut her off. Marlo stepped in, her face calm but her eyes blazing with loyalty. A security guard stood behind her, his presence a quiet threat. Mrs. Brooks, you needed me? Marlo asked, her tone professional but warm. I gave her a nod. Tell them, Marlo. Tell them who I am. Marlo squared her shoulders, looking straight at Giselle. Mrs. Seraphina Brooks is the founder and CEO of Willow Haven Resorts. She owns this property and 11 others across Tennessee. Every detail here, the cabins, the market, the lake, it's all her vision. She's the reason we're standing here. The room went silent, the air thick with shock. Giselle's mouth opened, then closed, her eyes darting like a trapped animal. Thane stared at the floor, the ledger still in his hands, his shoulders slumped. I felt a rush, not of joy, but of power, like a storm breaking after years of calm. You thought you had me figured out, I said, my voice rising, each word a hammer. You thought I was nothing, just a babysitter you could mock and use. But I built this empire from the ground up, and I've been carrying you both for years. That ends tonight. Giselle's face twisted, her voice a desperate squeak. You can't prove any of this. You're delusional, just like we said. I stepped closer, my eyes locked on hers. Delusional? The only delusion here is that you think you could treat me like dirt and get away with it. I own this place, Giselle. I call the shots, and I'm done letting you walk all over me. Thane finally looked up, his eyes wide, pleading. Mom, please, we didn't mean... Don't, I cut him off, my voice cold. You made your choice when you laughed at me, when you let her tear me down in front of strangers. You don't get to backpedal now. Marlo cleared her throat, her presence a quiet anchor. Is there anything else you need, Mrs. Brooks? I shook my head, my gaze never leaving Giselle and Thane. Not yet, but stay close. The guard shifted, a silent reminder of my authority. Giselle's face was white as a sheet, her hands clenched into fists. Thane just sat there, the ledger crumpling in his grip, like a man watching his world unravel. I turned to leave, pausing at the door. Pack your bags, I said, my voice low but firm. You're paying your own way from now on. The door clicked shut behind me, and for the first time in days, I felt the weight lift, replaced by a fire that burned bright and fierce. They'd underestimated me, but I just flipped the script. The dawn broke over Smoky Hills, painting the sky in hues of peach and gold, the kind of morning that usually made my heart sing. But today, As I stood on the porch of the Meadowview cabin, my pulse thrummed with a different kind of fire. Last night, I'd laid it all bare. I, Seraphina Brooks, the black woman who'd built Willow Haven and 12 other resorts from nothing, had shown Thane and Giselle the truth. I'd handed them the deed, the ledger of every dollar I'd poured into their lives, and watched their smug world crumble. Giselle's shrill denials and Thane's stunned silence still echoed in my mind. I'd drawn a line in the sand, and today I'd make sure they felt the weight of it. But first, I had one last thing to do. For Zaria and Khalil, my grandbabies, who deserved to know their grandma wasn't the nobody their mother had painted. I sipped my coffee, the steam curling in the crisp air, and watched the mist roll off the lake. The hurt from their betrayal, Giselle's venom, Thane's laughter, the kids' parroted lies, still stung, sharp as a wasp. But the fire inside me burned brighter, fueled by the truth I'd reclaimed. I wasn't just some old woman they could kick around. I was Seraphina Brooks, a force who'd turned dirt into dreams, and I was done playing small. The cabin door creaked open, and Giselle stepped out, her face pale, her usual swagger gone. Thane followed, his eyes red-rimmed, like he hadn't slept. They stopped short when they saw me, standing tall with my arms crossed, my purse slung over my shoulder, the document still inside like a loaded gun. "Seraphina," Giselle started, her voice tight, trying to sound sweet but failing. "Can we just talk about this? Last night got out of hand." I raised a hand, cutting her off. "Save it, Giselle. I meant what I said. You're checking out this morning, and you're paying for every cent of this trip. Every spa treatment, every cocktail, every damn thing. No more free rides." Her mouth opened, then snapped shut, her eyes flashing with panic. "You can't do this," she sputtered. "You don't have the right—" "I own this place," I said, my voice low and steady, each word a hammer. "I have every right. Willow Haven, all 12 resorts, they're mine. You don't get to call me nothing and expect to keep cashing my checks." Thane stepped forward, his hands raised like he was calming a wild horse. "Mom, please, let's work this out. We didn't know. I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean to laugh when she called me useless?" I shot back, my eyes locking on his. "You didn't mean to tell strangers I'm a broke nobody living off your scraps? You didn't mean to let her poison my grandbabies against me?" My voice cracked, but I didn't look away. "You made your choice, Thane. You stood with her, not me." His face crumpled, guilt etching lines I hadn't seen before. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't think—" "That's the problem," I said, softer now, but firm. "You didn't think about me, about what I've done for you, the car, the kids' school, your whole damn lifestyle. I paid for it, and you let her turn me into a joke." I pulled the ledger from my purse, holding it up. "This stops now. You're on your own." Giselle's face twisted, her voice rising. "You're bluffing. You're just a sad old woman trying to feel important. You can't cut us off like this." I stepped closer, my eyes boring into hers. "Try me. You've got till noon to settle your bill and get out. Marlowe's waiting at the desk with the invoice." I turned to Thane, my heart aching but resolute. "You're my son, and I'll always love you. But I'm done being your ATM. You made your bed, lie in it." I walked away, their stunned silence trailing behind me like a shadow. My chest was tight, but my steps were sure. For the first time in days, I felt like myself again, not the invisible grandma, but the woman who'd built an empire from nothing. I headed to the kids' club, where Zaria and Khalil were finishing breakfast with the counselors. They looked up as I walked in, their eyes curious but guarded, still under Giselle's spell. "Hey, you two," I said, kneeling beside them, my voice warm despite the ache. "How about we take a little adventure before your parents pack up?" Zaria frowned, her tablet forgotten for a moment. "Mom says we have to stay here till they're ready." I smiled, a real one this time. "Your mom's wrong, sweetie. Come with me. I've got something to show you." Khalil hesitated, but Zaria's curiosity won out, and they followed me out to the orchard behind the lodge, where rows of apple trees stretched under the morning sun. We sat under a tree, the grass soft beneath us, and I handed them each an apple, their red skins glinting like jewels. "You know," I started, my voice steady, "I built this place. Willow Haven, all of it. I was a teacher once, scraping by after your granddaddy passed, but I learned the land, bought it cheap, and turned it into something beautiful." Khalil's eyes widened, his apple half-eaten. "You built this? For real?" "For real," I said, ruffling his hair. 12 resorts, all mine. I worked hard, made mistakes, but I never gave up. That's who your grandma is. Not some barn cleaner, not a liar, a fighter." Zaria's brow furrowed, doubt flickering. "But Mom says you make stuff up to sound cool." I leaned closer, my voice soft but firm. "Your mom's got her own ideas, but they're not the truth. Look around. This place is my truth. I wanted you to know who I am because one day you'll need to know what you're capable of, too." I pulled out the old photo of Thane, showing them his gap-toothed grin. "Your daddy was my reason to keep going. Now you two are." Khalil took the photo, his fingers tracing the edges. "Did Dad really catch fish here?" "Big ones," I said, smiling. "He was fearless. You've got that in you, too." Zaria didn't speak, but her eyes lingered on the photo, a crack in her armor. We spent the morning picking apples, laughing as juice dripped down Khalil's chin, Zaria even joining in when a worm startled her. For those hours, we were a family, not strangers bound by blood. I told them stories, not legends, but real ones about the nights I'd stayed up planning, the deals I'd fought for, the dreams I'd turned into reality. I didn't know if they'd believe me, but I'd planted the seed. That was enough for now. By noon, I stood at the lodge's entrance, watching Thane and Giselle load their bags into the SUV. Giselle's face was a mask of fury, her hands shaking as she handed Marlowe a credit card. Thane avoided my eyes, his shoulders slumped, the ledger still tucked under his arm like a confession. I didn't wave as they drove off, the gravel crunching under their tires. The hurt was still there, raw and heavy, but it didn't own me anymore. I turned back to the lodge, the fairy lights twinkling as the sun climbed higher. Willow Haven was mine, my heart, my legacy. I'd come here hoping to fix my family, but I'd learned something better. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who see you, who respect you. I'd spent years chasing Thane's approval, Giselle's acceptance, but I didn't need it. I was enough. As I walked toward the orchard to pick up Zaria and Khalil, my steps felt lighter, my heart fuller. I'd given them the truth, and one day they'd understand. For now, I'd keep building, keep fighting, keep being the woman who turned nothing into everything. The Smoky Hills stretched out before me, endless and free, and I knew I'd never let anyone make me feel small again. This story's about standing tall when others try to cut you down. Seraphina showed us that your worth isn't defined by lies. Truth and grit always win out. Have you ever had to fight for your dignity against those closest to you? Drop a comment and share your story. It might light the way for someone else. Next time, we're diving into another tale of betrayal and redemption that'll hit home just as hard, so don't miss it. Thank y'all for watching. Your support means the world to me. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong and speak your truth.